Dr. Scott, one time I was playing Dungeons and Dragons with all of my doctor friends, as we do once a month. And
Well,
in the
as
middle
as
of it,
you do, most of us veterinarians do not. But go
they
on.
don't? I thought we all did. I'm pretty sure that's everybody.
Except
Anyway,
me.
we're all playing. You're the only one not invited, not cool enough to play Dungeons and Dragons. But we're sitting there, and I get an instant message phone call on Instagram, which I had no idea you could do, from a client who follows me on Instagram. And I'm looking at this, and we're all there looking at it. And I was like, what is these people never contact me outside of work.
Mhm.
They're very respectful of my time. And I'm like, what is happening? I know who they are. And so I went around the table and said, should I take this or what? What do I do? It's a Sunday afternoon. And the table was absolutely split 50-50 on whether or not I should take that call or not.
Hmm.
But because these people have always been so respectful of my time and it was such an unusual thing, I took the call, talked them through a little emergency. They just wanted a little help getting to the emergency clinic. What do they do? Where do they go? And they were so grateful to that. And the main reason I did it is because one time they heard I was sick and had food sent to my house.
Oh.
And I was like, that earned you a phone call one time.
Yes. One time.
Welcome to the Vets Unleashed,
where we gather animal professionals and animal enthusiasts to discuss the most pressing, silly, and interesting topics in the animal kingdom. I'm Dr. Scott.
And I'm Dr. Mike. And today we are talking about boundaries.
And we have an expert.
Personal.
Yes,
yeah.
An expert, Kelly Burich. Did I say your last name correctly?
No, but that's okay because it's technically not my last name. It's my husband's last name.
Okay.
Here's how we say it. Ready?
Uh-huh.
Think cold and scratchy. Burich.
Burich.
Okay.
Burich. Yes.
Burich.
Yes.
Kelly Burich.
It used to be Kelly Barnes.
Kelly Barnes.
It's like lights. Yeah.
Yep.
You can call it whatever. I answered to almost anything except the bad things people say about me.
And although we're clearly all experts at everything we talk about, could you maybe share with our listeners why specifically you're here? What journey are you on, and why are you our resident expert on setting boundaries in veterinary medicine?
I'm the expert of the day. So thank you, first off, for having me. My journey has been kind of all over the place. So I have worked with Dr. Scott for many years for a variety of manufacturers, and life gave me an opportunity to kind of kick my own self in the back end and do something I've always wanted to do. And that's hang out my own shingle for veterinary consulting services. So I have spent many years in what we've historically called key account programs, offering and leveraging consulting services for professional skill development, mainly to help veterinarians kind of align their product portfolio with whatever manufacturer was offering those consulting services. And I like to say the services that I'm hoping to better represent are some of those missing pieces or the pieces that we didn't focus on as heavily in veterinary academia or in training for technicians, veterinary nurses, assistants in those areas. So in this pursuit, learning more about what we call emotional labor roles, which is what we also classify veterinarians in, we see a lot of struggles, as you well know, with the statistics, with burnout, stress management, compassion fatigue. And one construct of that, what's causing some of this is, to your point, Dr. Mike, how effectively can we set personal and professional boundaries? So there's gobs and gobs and oodles of papers and research about all different things. But I opted to also go back to school as I had that opportunity present itself, because I too want to be a doctor person like you amazing experts. So I have been pursuing my Doctor of Business Administration at the University of North Carolina in Charlotte. And as this is an open dissertation topic, I have chosen the topic of how do we look at professional skill set development to minimize burnout, stress management, so that we can have longevity in the veterinary profession. Wow, that was a
Yeah.
lot, right?
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, and with that, I think we should toast you with our drink of the day, which is we've renamed it the Boundary. And it is tequila, citrus, lime and lemon, and Coke. So
That's it.
cheers to the future
Cheers.
Dr.
Cheers.
Burich.
You did it.
Yeah.
You got it right. Okay, here we
Enjoy.
go. I didn't have any
Bottoms up.
limes. I have to cheat on my drink.
I mean, it's
It's
lemon
burning.
and lime and tequila and Coca-Cola. It's
That's really
delicious.
good.
Yeah.
I have to say,
it-
I am headed to Hawaii tomorrow. I will be on the beach in
Oh.
Kauai tomorrow evening, and I'm a Mai
Mhm.
Tai person through and through.
Mhm.
I love it. But
Yeah.
this would be equally
Delicious
as
on the
refreshing around the pool or laying in the sand.
A
Yeah.
nice beach drink. I need to learn how to better pour. Well, I mean, I don't think I poured it inappropriately. It's just I think I just grew hair on my
Yeah.
chest.
Yeah.
Some people might say you have a drinking problem.
You know,
I think she has a pouring
we just-
problem.
That's right. I have
A
a
pouring
pouring problem,
problem.
and we just call that being Irish.
The drink goes down just fine.
Oh, yeah. It's no problem at all for us Irish people to drink.
That's right. We don't like quitters.
Yeah. Well, I'm actually really
Uh,
fascinated about this topic simply
Mhm.
because it was never so much the clients for me that I had trouble drawing boundaries with. It was more drawing boundaries with my work and my relationship to my work. And
Mhm.
in clinical practice, I can honestly say I never found a way for more than 5-6 years at a time to be sustainably happy without getting overwhelmed and sort of losing, giving more than I was getting back from my profession, and I would end up leaving. So this is a topic that's of, of extreme personal interest for me. How do we get started? What types of boundaries are we talking about here?
Well, I mean, I think we can overclassify anything, but I would absolutely say let's just stick with personal boundaries and professional boundaries. What is fascinating to me with veterinarians is you are rather, absolutely in care minded, others first professions. And that's pretty much your whole healthcare team. Some might say, well, it's because we're all empathetically driven, which we know we have high levels of empathy. We're empathetically tended individuals that are drawn to the industry.
Mhm.
But when you're putting that together with the pace, to your point, Dr. Scott, the fast pace of the career, the dynamic changes we have with clients and client beliefs, and that pace on top of it with not being able to say no as frequently as we want to, voila, you've got the building blocks for stress, for burnout, for everything else that goes along with it.
Sure.
And boundaries mean a lot of things to different people. To me, it just means how much respect do you have for yourself first
Yeah.
and for others next?
Mhm.
I love what I do. I don't like it when people are mad at me. And let's face it, we have a lot of people pleasers in our industry. It's okay to be a no, right? It's okay to be, I know, like, what else? Which is, she's going to say, like, water is wet next, to be like the
check,
mistress of the
check,
obvious.
check.
Yeah, done. What else do we already know? But it's even, how can we effectively coach ourselves to have a confident way to say no? I can't do that.
Mhm.
I can do this. I can't do that right now. Can you even identify what your boundaries are? Dr. Mike, to your point, you were really able to take that situation and say, would I do this all the time?
Mhm.
Yeah.
No. But for this one, this pet parent, this client was nice enough to do this for me. I want to reciprocate. Now, I might even take it a step farther because we condition people how to treat us. So, did I potentially, if I say I did this because they did this for me, did I set the stage with this person to be able to think that this is now an all the time behavior? So, is it even taking a reaction or a conversation like that to say, I am honored to do this for you this time,
Yeah.
Mhm.
for this situation? I'm happy to help you. I think it's first being able to understand, what are your boundaries? What are the places you are willing to say, I'm willing to go this far in these situations? It's as simple as just taking a few minutes to write some things down. And that can be very challenging, especially for people pleaser or empathetically driven people.
Yeah.
I think it's also having a healthy level of self-awareness to be able to say, I don't like it when, can I say naughty words? Did we
You,
Yes,
agree? I can say
we are an
something.
You can
implicit
say.
podcast. We don't
yeah,
Okay.
take the
Well, I
advantage of
figured we
that
were
as
going
much.
to.
yeah.
It's not like Bible study. You're drinking, you can't say a bad word. I don't like it when I piss people off. I don't really know too many people that are like, I cannot wait to piss people off today
Mhm.
because I love
Yeah.
how it feels. That is a boundary for me. I am aware to say, I understand. I know I don't like how this feels, and I know I'm not going to like how this feels. But I also know I have to say, what is no going to look like when I set that boundary? What's it going to sound like? Having that level of self awareness. But I also think, start someplace easily. Am I going to take on every case that comes into work?
Yeah.
No.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's a good point. Going back to my example from the beginning, um, I've been doing this for 25 years. I've become a little better, tiny bit. I think my girlfriend would say not great, but tiny bit better at
Wait,
setting
what are we talking
boundaries.
about here?
About setting boundaries.
Oh, boundaries. Yes. Okay, go on.
Well,
Sorry.
so for that particular case, I felt comfortable, taking one call. But that's also because I had years of giving too much. So for a new graduate, it sounds like what you're saying is the first thing to do is set where your boundaries are. Like find out what's okay for you, how much time you need when you're off. Are you totally off and you don't want to be disturbed at all? Or are you the type of person that, you know what, I do want to hear about that case. I don't want to have to weigh in a bunch, but you know what? Let me know everything turned out okay on that sort of a
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
These are the places I'll be willing to compromise. There is a phrase in a workshop that I present, and I love it. It says, for every misplaced yes to someone else, that is saying no to yourself. Now, I've been on vacation where I'm just going to check this one email. I'm just going to do this one time. Well, 2 hours later, my family's sitting there, going, dinner's cold. We didn't spend any time with you. What are those boundaries? When do you disconnect from not just the job, but to the commitments?
Sure.
It's sometimes as simple as saying, like I said, I can't do that, but I can do this.
Mhm.
I'm showing you this. I like to say I look like a sleazy drug lord. I have two phones. This is the work phone. It only goes to work. If I go on vacation, this is the fun, hey, let's play on social media phone. There's no, and I look ridiculous. I look very pretentious. Why do I do that? Because I went on vacation one year and I had a work colleague and a client that kept calling and I kept answering the phone going, I am on vacation. And someone said, well, you don't have to answer the phone. And I said, I do because you won't quit calling, but I don't have to answer it.
Yeah.
So what are those things I'm willing to do? If I go on vacation, am I going to tell my medical team, I am disconnecting. I'm not taking any calls. You can call, I will not answer.
Excellent.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to do.
But it sure feels good once you've done it.
Do you expect that of anybody else? I mean, I think of that like if I knew you were on vacation and my animal was sick, would I call you?
Yeah.
I don't think I would.
No.
But would I be okay if you did that to me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'd be fine with that. Let's be reasonable.
Well, let's take a quick break. Yeah. And when we come back, we can talk about some more specific things we can do for setting boundaries. And then also maybe think about it from the client perspective. What should a client expect?
Yeah.
Right.
All right.
Perfect.
Right. Cheers.
Cheers.
Hi, this is Dr. Mike, the Bowtie Vet Guy. Thanks for tuning in to The Vets Unleashed. If you want to find out more about us or our guests or to leave an amazing review, head on over to thevetsunleashed.com or find us on Instagram or Facebook at The Vets Unleashed. There you'll find information on the podcast, how to be a guest, and our lecture series and speaking availability. Now let's get back to the show. All right, and we are back with doctoral candidate Kelly Burich.
Almost doctor.
Almost doctor.
Almost doctor. Kelly Burich, who is talking to us today about boundaries. And one thing I thought of as we were chatting here on the break, I used to work many, many hours, and I would get all these phone calls of people that only wanted to talk to me. And, of course, I felt very special because they only wanted to talk to Dr. Mike, nobody else. And they wanted to get those phone calls. And so I would be working all day and then I'd be making phone calls until 8:30, 9
Mhm.
o'clock. You know what I mean? People were grateful that I called, but it was just weighing on me. And then I made, a boundary within myself of like, I'm not going to make calls after 7:30 or 7:45, depending on the day. And I would make calls until then, and then I would be done wherever I was. I wouldn't call people back. And I was just so worried that people were going to be upset with me, that people were going to be disappointed in me. And do you know how many people were disappointed in me? 0. Yeah,
Yeah.
nobody. Not once did anybody ever be like, why didn't you call me last night? Nope, they didn't. They're like, thank you so much for getting back to me within a day. It was life-changing.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and doesn't that really bode the question, like, who put that in my mind? Did I put that in my mind? Did I hear that? Did I see that from other providers? Did I create this myself? And I think that is such a valid point for so many things, because what do we hear in our animal hospitals? We hear Mrs. Smith, it's always Mrs. Smith or Mrs. Jones, right? Well, Dr. Mike always calls me back. I have always, that A word, always, always. Our medical teams hear that. You hear that as providers. And that's like DEFCON 5. Oh God, she said always. So here's my point with that. You as the provider, number one, empower your medical team. Number two, set that expectation each and every time with that pet parent. I or one of my medical team members whom I have empowered will call you back.
Yeah.
Yep.
Set that right up front. So
Yeah.
take that, guilt's a wasted emotion, said the
Yeah.
Catholic convert girl. Take that guilt right out of it. I have asked my medical team. I trust my medical team. One of us will be calling you back. It will more than likely be Kelly, my medical assistant, or
Right.
whomever.
Yeah.
Set that expectation.
What's interesting too is there definitely are generational issues at play here. I think that for Mike and I, when we were young veterinarians, we worked for these, older, generally white men back in those
Came to
days,
the building.
and an occasional woman, but they lived their whole life for veterinary medicine. They did not have boundaries. And I really see it now, even with, as a Gen Xer, I see it with the millennials and the Gen Zers. I see the Gen Xers saying these new kids, these new vets don't want to work. And maybe, are we chastising them for doing something we couldn't do well, which is just setting personal and professional boundaries? What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think our generation, so now we have, this is the broadest generational demographics we've ever seen in the history. So we've still got boomers. We've got us, the coolest generation, or Gen X. Let's give it up, right? We don't care about
We're
anything.
doing all the work while they're fighting on each side of us.
Right? Like y'all just whatever. We have our millennials. Now we have Gen Z, and then we have Alpha Gen coming up. My granddad always used to say it is the responsibility of every generation to hate the generation behind them. It's your responsibility. But I commend millennials and Gen Zers because they observed. What do I want? What do I not want? Maybe some of the things we all should have been doing, but at least they had a little bit of the stones to come to the table to say, dude, that's great, lady, that's great. You want to be chained to this building? I don't. So I want to find a smarter way to work. I think it's having that ability to say, what are the things I don't like? I think that's okay. I don't like it when people call me on vacation. You can call me. I'm not going to answer. That's setting a boundary. That's setting an expectation. After hours, I will make calls until 6 p.m. If Kelly calls tomorrow because nobody told her that we were, going to communicate test results, and she calls first thing in the morning, the first question I want to ask myself is, who set that expectation with her? If Kelly came up with that in her mind, I have every right to say, Kelly, these tests take 24 to 48 hours. It was my understanding that was communicated. If it wasn't, I do apologize. Or we told you that it would be 24 to 48 hours. That's why we haven't called back. Okay. What are the limitations you're willing to set? And what are going to be the consequences? Because you are going to have to say, I don't like how it feels. So how am I going to work my way out of that? I don't want to be there till 7 o'clock at night. I advise people just start. A good list is your best friend in any situation. So start with one or two things. What are the things in your career, if you are a Gen Z, a millennial coming up, that you're observing and you're like, God, I don't want to do that. Okay, how are you still going to provide the highest level of customer service, the best standard of medical care? What are the solutions? It's okay to say, I don't like that, but I do like this. So maybe instead of calling people back till 10 o'clock at night, what levels of technology do we have that I can text, I can email, I can ask a team member tomorrow morning, can you ensure that these 10 text messages are put into these files so that we have things, prior preparation? How do we do that? But I think it's also important to have, I like to say, in yoga, we talk about that third eye so you can sort of see holistically. How are you going to determine if those boundaries are being crossed? Because I'll do it this one time. Well, one time turns into 10 times. It's just like any type of, surgical technique you practice or communications on medical recommendations. It is so important to have what I like to say that back pocket or your go-to statement of what is no going to sound like.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. So practicing that ahead of time,
Yes.
like maybe just not saying, no, I won't do that, but I won't, I won't do it this way. Let's try this instead.
Yeah.
Which comes
Yeah.
to a point like, maybe you're a new grad and you are trying this setting a boundary and you're working at a place where that doesn't happen and you don't know how to do this. I think the list idea is a great idea, and then testing that and find out what happened. Just like I did with my not calling people back. And then you're right, I've empowered my team members. Now in the morning when I get all my huge stack of phone calls, I triage them. What ones do I have to answer? What ones can other people answer for me?
Absolutely. What's most important and urgent? What is urgent but maybe not important? But I also think here's our mind blowing statement for the week, the day, whatever. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Boundaries create professional respect. I don't want someone to hate me, but I sure as heck want you to know you're only going to push me to right here.
Hmm.
And I don't need to be ugly, even personally. I was just coaching a hospital earlier this week, and one of the team members was like, no, I have to do everything in the house because it has to be done to my standard.
Mm-hmm.
Like the dishes have to be washed this way. And this is why I'm exhausted all the time. And I said, hold up, is this the ditch we want to die in?
Right.
How about we say, husband, wife, kids, come here. This ship runs smoothly because of how I'm doing things. And maybe my way isn't 100% right, but this is how I like things done so that I have peace, so that I have calm, so that I have comfort and assurance. Can you please do this way? And I want to hand this off to you. Because guess what? I'm telling you, I'm not going to do all of this.
Okay.
I can't.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing professionally. In your career, whether you work in a hospital, for a manufacturer, or whomever, there are those professional people that you are like, I know I can ask and I know they'll help, but I know they are comfortable saying no. And I wish I had stones like that.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I could do that. So practice it, figure it out. What is that going to sound like and feel like? And I think the other thing too that we have to get comfortable with, somebody's always going to be upset.
Mm-hmm.
And is that yours to own with a boundary?
Well, and I was going to
No, it's
say
not.
too, just thinking about sometimes what is the worst possible outcome here. There's a lot of clients that maybe they came in and they were rude to our staff and dismissive of us and and you still have this high standard for every single client. Maybe it's not the worst thing in the world if they're like, you know what, I don't get you, and now you're not calling me back at 7:30 at night. I'm going to move down the line. Whereas vice versa, if I ever heard any constructive criticism from one of the clients that we just genuinely loved, that was helping build our practice and that we had this strong, collaborative relationship with, the first thing I would do is get on the phone and say, I'm trying to create some boundaries here. And in the process, it sounds like, I said something in a way that you were offended or you were disappointed. I'd like to talk about that more. And it might be an opportunity not only to set the boundary, but to actually build that relationship with that particular client as well.
Absolutely. Let's get comfortable in the uncomfortable. Those aren't easy conversations to have. And Dr. Scott, in that scenario, how many of those people that have pushed those
Mm-hmm.
boundaries are the most profitable people for your hospital? They're the kindest to your medical team.
Right.
They're
Mm-hmm.
the first ones that show up. I'm going to leave this practice. Folks, every
Mm-hmm.
time you hear that, that is a hostage situation. That is manipulation, and you have to decide how you want to be treated. Am I saying turn around when Kelly shows up and, you know, forgive me, is, showing her ass to your medical team? Am I saying for every single one of those people, give them their charts and say, you know what, good luck,
Yeah,
go with
of
God?
course not.
No, I'm not. But what I am saying is, let's stop for a second. What am I going to say every time I hear that threat?
Mhm.
I'm going to say, gosh, Kelly, that's certainly not what we want. But if
Yeah.
you don't feel like we are treating you the way you deserve to be treated, we want to help you find a place that makes you happy.
Mhm.
And we thought we were doing that. We didn't realize by saying no that would cause this. Sometimes we have to show people, what does your behavior look like? And that's a whole nother onion between, personal psychology, conflict management. I mean, we'll be here until there's no more boundary drink bottle left. But it is having that observation of sometimes everybody needs that mirror kind of held back up to their face to say, that's what this sounded like.
Sure.
Right.
I am entitled to go home at a reasonable hour and spend time with myself, my family, my friends.
Absolutely.
I'm not entitled to that. That is a right just like you have.
Absolutely.
So practice those statements. How am I going to say no? How am I going to say, and you've heard me say a few times, I can't do that. I can't call you back every 2 seconds, but I can do this. I am not going to answer my phone on my days off, but I can direct you to this person. What does it sound like?
Excellent advice. Well, we are at the top of our, or at the bottom of our podcast. Is it the top or the bottom?
Yeah.
We are at the end
Wait,
of
I'm
our.
at the bottom of my drink.
We're at the
I know
end
that.
of
the
our
drink.
podcast and the bottom of our drink. So, with that, Kelly Burich, any final thoughts on creating boundaries?
I think we get so wrapped up in the fact we're going to disappoint somebody that we forget the first person we need to be truest and most genuine to is ourselves. And that's hard for empathetically driven people. And I think maybe that's why in these emotional labor roles, we have such significant levels of burnout. So here's what I would tell my veterinary colleagues. No matter what data point you look at, I would tell you we can't afford to lose you. We can't afford to lose you, regardless of the predicted shortage of providers, not just for companion animals, but also for our food supply. The fact that you have these gifts and these talents, it's okay to protect yourself. We have to get comfortable understanding that it's not our job to be people pleasers. It's our job to provide the best care with the amount of knowledge that you have learned, been gifted with for those pets, and to provide the best benefit to that pet parent relationship.
Yeah.
It's okay to say no.
I
It
don't
is.
think we could have wrapped that up in a more concise or important way. Before we
Perfect.
go, first of all, thank you for joining us. It's been
So much.
wonderful.
Having me. This was an honor.
But also, how can our listeners find you? Is there any newsletters or, perhaps any, online places that they can find you for consulting services and for just maybe talking about situations?
There's this thing called the interweb, and it's got all these places you can go on it. What a wonderful opportunity for a shameless ploy, or plug, rather. I appreciate that, or ploy, whichever.
Plug.
Whichever. Have another drink. Yes, there are multiple places to find me. So, like I said, I have been very blessed to start this new opportunity. As we were discussing my last name, nothing rhymes with it. So, my hip nieces and nephews have told me this phrase, the sitch. Not stitch. The sitch is the hip phrase for situations. What's the sitch, Dr. Scott, Dr. Mike?
Got it.
So the name of my consulting firm is called Sitch Consulting because I look at the variety of situations that your medical team will come into contact with, or those situational development needs that we're all going to have. So if you are on the interweb, as my pop calls it, you go to Sitch, Sitch, Sitch rhymes with Burich. SitchConsulting.com is my website. And then those of you that are on LinkedIn, certainly my personal page at Kelly Burich, but I do have a weekly, when I get to it, sort of weekly, monthly, sometime during the year, newsletter called The Sitch with Burich that I talk about a lot of different opportunities. There is a newsletter on this very topic with boundaries, but things like leadership development, communication development, setting boundaries, managing burnout. What does burnout look like? How do we manage compassion fatigue and emotional labor roles? So it's sort of the foundation of my dissertation, but some sprinklings of education to help make your lives a little bit easier for all the good that you wonderful veterinary people do.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much again for being here. Everybody look up the sitch and and find out more information. Thank you again so much for being with us.
Always great to see you, Kelly.
Yep.
Likewise, my friends. Thanks so
Right.
much.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for joining us for drinks and a conversation about veterinary medicine and our beloved animals. The Vets Unleashed podcast is wholly owned by the Vets Unleashed LLC with excellent production by Earweevil Audio. For more information about us, head over to thevetsunleashed.com. And as always, don't take advice from people who've been drinking.